Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to part two.
Part two.
Part
of Pioneer
two.
Membership.
Our 3-week series doing our leadership lean-ins about what it is to be a pioneer member of Redeemer. And so last week was leadership. And so Rod and Alex talked about what does it look like to submit to the leadership of Redeemer. And this week we're looking at vision.
Yeah, vision. Big one.
Next week we're going to be talking about family priorities. What does it look like to be part of the family here? And so we're just going to spend the next 15-20 minutes talking about the vision of our church. So what does it mean? What does it mean for us to have a vision? Why do we need a vision?
Yeah, so I think it's just so important for a church to have a vision. Like the very first church, when Jesus gathers a little group of friends on top of a hill somewhere, and he gives them a vision. He says, go and make disciples everywhere you go, teach them, baptize them. And that's been the vision of the church ever since. And so when we're talking about vision, we're not talking about something distinct from what Jesus gave the first followers of Jesus. We're kind of just talking about the thing that Jesus has uniquely given to us. Like how are we articulating this big vision that Jesus has given the church to what God has called us to do? And I guess for me, vision is the thing that makes your heart beat a little faster. It's the thing that energizes you. It's the thing that captivates you. It's kind of the thing that grounds you. It's the thing that helps you to define what do we do and what do we not do? Where do we go and where do we not go? Because it kind of just really hones us in. And when you're talking about vision, we're kind of asking questions like what would our town be like if God was really present, if God was really at the center, if this town was ordered around God, what does it look like? It forces us to ask questions about the problems of our town, the way that our town should look but doesn't. But then it helps us to think, no, what's the unique contribution God has given us to bring to the place that he's put us? Mm-hmm. And so that's why it's just so important to have vision. It's where we want to go. It's the direction of travel. It's really what we want to define everything we do by.
Absolutely.
It's really important.
And so when we talk about it in a moment, it's what if the things we do aren't guided by what our vision is, and then we're going to very quickly kind of lose our way and end up doing all manner of things. But actually, what our vision statement is, and regardless of whether that's for the next year or for the next 10 years, we want to be guided by it. We wanted to answer the questions that people are asking and the problems that people face. And so, if you haven't already picked up on it, if you haven't read your Pioneer Membership booklet, which you should all have received, our vision statement that we are going to test drive for the next year, 18 months. Go on,
is taking Jesus to the center. And we really want to emphasize the test driving thing, by the way. So we really love this vision statement, and we're going to kind of unpack it a little bit in the next few minutes. But actually, it's like any time a new car is designed, actually a kind of pivotal part of that design process is we're going to take it around the track 20 times to see what it's like. And so we're not saying this is the way that we're going to articulate the vision of Redeemer for the next 20 years exactly, but we are saying that we really like it for this season, and we want to see how it runs. We want to use it. We want you to use it. We want it to kind of embed in the way that we talk about things, so that we can think, do we want to tweak? Do we want to change? Do we want to level it up? Do we want to bolt something else on? All of those kind of questions we'll be asking. So we're kind of in that process together of test driving. That's why we want to talk about it in that kind of language.
Yeah, and so we love it. We really do.
Taking Jesus
like
to the center. It's
memorable. And it communicates so much of what we want to be about as a church, as a family together. Because it's, should we break it down a bit? So just to take it bit by bit. And so first of all, it's talking about Jesus is the answer. It's not Alex, it's not me, it's not even you or us as a church, but it's Jesus who is the answer to people's problems. It's Jesus who can satisfy the desires of people's hearts, the longings that we all have. And so it's all about Jesus. Yeah,
all about Jesus. Yeah, and like we looked at when we were talking about John the Baptist, I guess a couple of months ago now, that we want to be nobodies telling everybody about a somebody. We really don't want this to be about us. It's not about Redeemer. It's about Jesus. And so Jesus is the answer. But Jesus, because even though he's the kind of central character and the hero of the story, doesn't mean to say there aren't side parts. There aren't key roles that God has given us to play in that kind of big drama of Jesus being the hero. And actually that's pivotal. When you read through the New Testament, you don't get any sense that to be a Christian is kind of just to sit back, enjoy the fact that we've been brought into this beautiful drama that Jesus is the hero of, but we don't have any part to play. It's like if in the New Testament you actually get the sense that if I don't play my part, then Jesus isn't going to come to the center in the way that he would. That's the way that Paul talks. He says, I worked harder than any of them. And he does say, yes, it was God that was working in me, but in no way does he say, I've got nothing to do with it. Yeah. And so we want to be people that every single one of us has a responsibility and the privilege of taking Jesus to the center. It's almost like Jesus has decided that he's not going to walk there on his own. He's going to go through us. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to take him. That's another reason that we love it.
Yeah. And it just works on lots of different levels. And so it's not, first and foremost, it's about taking Jesus to the center of our lives, which we're going to touch on in a little bit, but also taking Jesus physically. We believe God has called us to the centre of our town, to the centre of Worthing, which is why we're going to be moving into the Gilbourne Centre sometime soon. And also to the centre of us as a church, just on every single level. We want it to be all about Jesus. Our priorities want to be all focused around him, not around our own agendas or what we think, but about how Jesus is leading us and what Jesus is calling us to.
Absolutely. So we're just going to watch a video now from some people in the leadership team just to hear about the vision statement from their perspective.
Hi guys, my name is Payman and this is Diane. We're part of the leadership team and we just want to quickly share with you what it means for us to follow the vision of the church. I think it is really important to have a vision in the church, which means that there's going to be one direction and there's going to be everyone knowing which way everyone's heading and what we are working really towards. So I think it's really important to just for us to work along with the vision of the church.
Yeah, I think it's a really important vision to have Jesus at the center, and I think it's relevant in every walk of our lives. We want to bring him to the center of our hearts, of our minds. We want to bring him to the center of Worthing most of all, and just bring him to the center of everything. That is what our hearts and that is the vision that we want to follow. So
and it's really, really important to just know what we're for. So when somebody looks at us as who we are as Redeemer Church, actually what is our qualities, what is it that we driving towards, and then hopefully when other people who will come and join us will also have the same eagerness and same drive. And it's such an amazing thing to just have one vision in the body of Christ, and for all of us to just go towards the same direction. So bringing Jesus to the center.
Yeah, we want to reach out and make Jesus the center of everyone's life.
Yeah, very good. Great. Thank you, guys.
So taking Jesus to the center, like we said, lots of different applications. Us, Gilbourne Centre, obviously very specifically for us, which is all positively going ahead. We've got more to say about that soon. To the centre of Worthing, the centre of our culture. And this is a kind of really big one for us. I mean, the reason that we started this church was for people who don't know Jesus, and we were really unambiguous about that. Want to be really clear about that. And taking Jesus to the centre of our culture is a big deal. For one, that's going to mean that we actually understand our culture. Yeah. Like, what are the questions that our culture is asking? What are the concerns that our culture's got? What are the objections to Christianity that our culture's got? And C.H. Spurgeon used to say, he was a preacher of a couple of hundred years ago, he used to say every Christians have a Bible under one arm and a newspaper under the other, which means we kind of equally understand what the Bible is saying but are able to apply that to the questions our culture is asking. And that's just really important. Our culture at the moment is asking big questions about gender, about justice, about politics, about the way that we order society, and the gospel and the God of the Bible has got things to speak into that. And so we must be people that understand our culture. It also means that we actually want to be like Jesus. So we kind of forget that God actually entered into a specific culture at a specific time, at a specific point, that Jesus was a Middle Eastern Jew who spoke probably a mixture of Hebrew, Aramaic, spoke a specific language. And we when we think of like missionaries, we think of them, they go abroad and they maybe learn a language. I don't think that's any different to what we're doing. I think actually we've got to understand our culture, but not just understand it to be able to kind of critique it as if it's something over there, but as something to enter into. So actually something to almost take on. And in 1 Corinthians 9, Paul talks about, he says, I became all things to all people, which means for us, we've got to become worthingers. We've got to become like the typical worthing person with their fears, their concerns, their I don't know, the music that they like, the films that they watch, the language that they use, the places where they hang out. If we're not in any of those spaces, then we're not actually going to be bringing the gospel or Jesus to the center of our culture as we should.
And so that's a big thing, isn't it? That means all of everything that we do, we want to be thinking, what does it look like to be a cultural missionary for our Sunday mornings, for everything. So what might it look like for our Sundays? How might that impact what we do on a Sunday?
I mean, we're just thinking a lot of this through, but Sundays are really important because I kind of feel like it's like the tip of an arrow, in that where the tip of the arrow goes, the whole thing follows. Mm-hmm. And so we can say that we want to take Jesus to the center of our town until we're blue in the face. But if that doesn't affect and shape the way that we think about the moment when we gather together, if that isn't so clearly evident and like embedded into the culture of what we do on a Sunday, then you can forget it the rest of the time. Yeah. And so maybe it looks like thinking, what are the questions that our culture is asking, and how do we speak into those? How are we making what we do accessible, enjoyable, compelling, challenging for people that don't know Jesus? What's the language that we use? What's the length of our meeting? What content do we have in our meeting? What's the style of music that we worship to? Because we want to worship Jesus. We want to take Jesus to the center, not something else. We want to worship Jesus, but we want to do it in a way that's accessible for our culture. In fact, that's what Christians have been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. But for some reason, occasionally the church just gets stuck like several decades behind, and we kind of just get caught up in our own little culture and forget actually we've been called to reach a specific culture. And so those are all the kind of questions that we're asking, and I guess it would be fair to say that everything's on the table for us apart from who Jesus is, what the gospel is. You know, so many things. We really don't want to be beholden to tradition, to old ways of doing things, even to ways that we would like to do things. We don't want to be captive to those. We actually want to be captive to what does it mean to see people come to know Jesus, and how do we best serve our town.
It's like the quote, I don't know who said it or who first said it, but everything changes but the gospel. And so it doesn't mean that we do things might have worked well 100 years ago or 500 years ago in a particular way, or even 20 years ago in a particular way, even 10 years ago in a particular way, the way things move. But it doesn't mean that we're going to be unapologetic about the gospel and who Jesus is. But actually how we do it could look very different from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Because we want to reach the place that God has put us right now. And I think we've also got to think, we actually genuinely want to take the real Jesus to the center of our culture. So don't hear that to mean we're just going to kind of pander and say the kind of things and be the kind of things that our culture wants us to be. We actually want to be uniquely followers of Jesus. We're actually something distinct. The Bible talks about the church being called out, but not called out to separate, but called out to send back in. And so we are going to want to talk about things that maybe our culture doesn't want to talk about. And actually that is another way that we take Jesus to the center of our culture. It's not just to talk about the things that our culture's talking about, it's to talk about the things that God wants us to talk about. Absolutely. But in a way that's going to bring transformation and change to our culture, not just because we want to be different for its own sake. Should we hear from another person in the leadership team?
Let's hear from another person in the leadership team.
As we plant Redeemer Church in the Gilbourne Centre, our vision is that we would take Jesus to the centre. For me, that's exciting. I was born in the centre of Worthing some 70 years ago, and over those years, many Christians from many churches have faithfully spoken of the love of Jesus in their lives, and spoken of their lives being transformed from the moment they asked Jesus into their lives. Taking Jesus to the centre means lots of things to me, but let me mention just two. It means giving the people of Worthing the opportunity of taking Jesus into the centre of their own lives and discovering how he can transform their lives no matter where they're at, showing them the true meaning of life and life in abundance. For me, taking Jesus to the centre also means making an impact right there in the centre of Worthing. Jesus made an impact wherever he went. He taught people about God. He healed people physically and mentally. He had a reputation for being the friend of sinners. He had a particular heart for children and for the poor, and much, much more. With Redeemer Church right there in the centre of Worthing, we want to be a church that is looking outward to meet folks where they're at, to take every opportunity to talk to them about Jesus, to pray for them, to love and support them, and to say, come just as you are, to join us in Redeemer Church to worship the one true God.
And so in everything that we do, we want to take Jesus to the centre. That means whether it's our work with the poor, whether it's with areas of injustice, whether it's to do with the nations, whatever it might be, we want to take Jesus to the centre. And so that we're not going to, as the vision statement isn't a vision chapter or paragraph, we're not going to cover every single thing in it, but it's the core of everything that we are going to do as a people. And so for us, we have been placed in this town at this time for a reason. So we want a big part of that is reaching out to Worthing, to our families, to our neighbours, to the people we work with. But obviously it is a bigger thing than that as well, which is encompasses all manner of things.
Whether we want to plant churches around this area or beyond, strengthen churches, be involved in regions beyond, which is obviously this big family of churches around the nations, other things. I think one of the things that we've got to really take seriously, though, is that God has given us, like Joel said, this place to reach. And actually what we'll find is that if we can carve something out in Worthing, if we can bring genuine change to Worthing, Jesus to the centre of Worthing, actually that gives us a kind of such a vital and wonderful platform to build on other things. It kind of means we've got something to export, to put it in a kind of different terminology. It means we can think, we want to plant a church like the one we started in Worthing. We want to go and help another church because we've learned some things in Worthing and we can serve. It's actually something to build on. It's no good having a focus on something out there if actually we've done nothing here. And I think actually, to be honest, Worthing needs churches that love Worthing. It needs churches that not just say, okay, we're kind of here in Worthing, so we better do some stuff here. It's like, no, we love Worthing. We're passionate about Worthing. We want to see schools and businesses and families and all sorts of other things flourish in Worthing because we love it. We love being here. We love it, everything about it in that kind of sense. And I think the more we can give ourselves to that kind of mindset, the easier we'll find it to serve the place that God has given us.
Yeah, that's so good. That's really helpful. Just our language is so important, isn't it? The way we talk about Worthing. So when you're tempted to slag off Worthing for some reason or other, let's just think actually, how do we want to represent Worthing well, knowing that Jesus loves this place and we want to bring Jesus right to the centre of it.
And that's a great question. Like, what does Jesus think about Worthing? And clearly there are things that need huge overhaul and change to be recentered around him. We know that. But Jesus, like when God talks about Nineveh, he says, should I not have pity on this great city with 120,000 people, including animals, or animals on top? And you think, wow, the God's heart is for a place the size of Worthing, 120,000 people. God loves Worthing and we want to love Worthing too. So why don't we just finish talking about how do we own this personally? What does it look like for us as individuals to take Jesus to the centre?
Because it's no good us just saying, right, we're going to take Jesus to the centre of our town, us the church, we're going to take Jesus to the centre, if we haven't first taken Jesus to the centre of our lives. If our priorities aren't in the right order, if we haven't got Jesus in the centre of our lives, then we're going to struggle to take Jesus to tell that to other people, get other people to get on board with it. And so it's so important for us. And we're going to be doing a series in Jonah starting in about a month's time or so. And that'll be part of what we're looking at. What does it look like, as Alex just said, to take Jesus to the centre of ourselves? What did it look like for Jonah to understand what it looked like to have Jesus at the centre of his life, where everything revolves around him? Because that we believe that is the answer to people's problems. That is going to, people try and answer it in all sorts of ways, in family, in money, or in career, or whatever that looks like. And we believe with all of our hearts, we believe that Jesus is the answer. And so we want to, but first it's important that we understand that. And so I think it's going to be so helpful going through the book of Jonah. I'm really looking forward to that. And just actually helping us understand as a church family, actually have we got Jesus at the centre of our lives? And I think it's going to be challenging for me and hopefully for us as a
I think it really will. I think that's one of the things we really want for people joining Redeemer, coming on this journey with us, is that we're really genuinely going on a journey with Jesus together. This isn't about like we've got something to really bring to our town, because there's people that don't know what we know. And I think actually we all need to go on a journey of taking Jesus further and deeper into our lives. And I think like in the book of Jonah, one of the things we'll see is this guy who out of every other character that you meet in the story of Jonah has the infinitely more knowledge about who God is and what God has done, and yet it needs to go deeper and deeper and deeper in. It's like Jesus can never go deep enough into your life, and we'll find that there'll be things that actually we think, no, Jesus wants to change that. So taking Jesus to the centre of that issue for me, whether it's the way I deal with my money, the way I deal with my time, the way I think about myself, my body, my my thought life, the way I treat others, our sex lives, our relationships, right? Literally every area of our lives, Jesus wants to be right in the centre of him, to dig out idols, things that we put in the centre of our lives all of the time, and replace them with himself. And I think that's going to be challenging, and that's what we want. We want you to be able to say, yes, I can own that vision statement, not just because I want to see my friends come to know Jesus, although that is so important, not just because we want to see our town change with Jesus at the centre, not just because we want to see our culture change and the way it thinks about so many things. Actually, you want to see you change, that you kind of go into it recognising, I've got stuff to change here. Jesus needs to come more and more and more to the centre of me. And I think that's going to challenge us, but I hope it's going to change us. I hope it's going to mean that, for example, like we were talking about last week for leadership, we're just going to be honest with you about the journey that we're going on with that. We don't want to just think, okay, we've got this sorted and you need to take Jesus to the centre of your lives. Man, that is a million miles from the truth. Yeah. And I hope we'll see some of that as we go through Jonah and beyond, actually, that we've got things that we need to change, that we need to repent of, that we need to grow in. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm slightly nervous about Jesus increasingly going to the centre of my life, because it means change, but I think it's going to be such a beautiful thing, and that's what we want. We want to do that together. Yeah, it's great. I'm looking forward to it. Great. Joel's up for it. So I think you're speaking in a couple of weeks' time, so you're going to be talking about how Jesus is going to be changing your life and the big things that he's changing and challenging. So just wait for big revelations from Joel. It's going to be like all skeletons out of the closet moment in a couple of weeks for Joel. Rachel can't wait. Yeah, she's going to be thrilled. She's going to be really thrilled. But I think it is a journey. So for each and every one of us, it's about owning it. So it starts with the leadership team, but that's also you. It's going to mean every single person playing their part. This town needs people that love Jesus. Yeah. Not just one or two people, but thousands of people who are going to reach out to to the people that they know, the people that they work with, the people they spend their days with. Yeah. If we're going to see this town transformed for Jesus. Yeah. So for every single one of us, it's going to mean Jesus coming more to the centre of our lives, but you thinking, how am I going to take Jesus to the centre of other things? So that's everything. Like, we're not just going to be a church that's about churchy things. We're going to be a church that's about your workplace, your college, the school that your kids go to, the politics of our town, the friendships that you've got. We want to take Jesus to the centre of everything. That's why we're starting an Alpha course in September, and everything that we do is going to be through this lens. And so we'd love you to come on the journey with us. We hope you found this helpful. Mm-hmm. And we've had fun doing it, as always. Top prizes, if you can guess where we are. You won't. It's just a hedge, so you really won't. but genuinely, I'll buy you a prize if you can guess, because I don't think you'll get it. So I put safe as houses. But thanks for spending some time with us, and we'll see you next week for what does it look like to be part of this family? What are our priorities as a family together? And it's probably fair to say that is the most practical part of this. What does it look like for you to be part of Redeemer? Yeah. Have a great time with your groups this week. See you then. Bye. Bye.